What happens when a global pop icon finally wins her freedom, only to find herself back in the headlines for something completely unexpected? That's the question fans around the world started asking after Britney Spears was suddenly arrested near her California home on suspicion of driving under the influence. The news spread fast, and almost instantly the internet exploded with reactions. Some people rushed to judge, others defended her, and many wondered the same thing. How did things get here? But the most surprising response didn't come from critics or gossip pages. It came from the man who once fought one of the biggest legal battles in her life, her former lawyer Mathew Rosengart. His message was short but powerful. Despite the controversy surrounding the arrest, he made one thing crystal clear: Britney Spears is and always will be an icon. That statement immediately caught attention because Rosengart isn't just any lawyer. He's the man who helped end the 13-year legal arrangement that controlled nearly every part of Britney's life. The same system that sparked protests, divided families, and launched a worldwide movement demanding her freedom. So when news of the arrest broke, fans weren't just reacting to another celebrity scandal. They were reacting to something far more complicated: the story of a woman who fought for independence after years of control, and is now trying to navigate life with that freedom. And the deeper you look into what happened that night, the more complicated the story becomes. Because this incident didn't just raise questions about one mistake. It reopened an entire conversation about Britney's past, her present, and what might come next. Late in the evening on March 4th, a quiet neighborhood near Ventura County suddenly became the center of a story nobody saw coming. According to reports, police stopped Britney Spears not far from her home after noticing signs that something wasn't quite right behind the wheel. Officers suspected she might be driving under the influence of a mix of alcohol and substances. The pop star was taken into custody, and within minutes the situation had already begun spreading online. For someone whose every move has been watched for decades, it didn't take long before the entire internet was talking about it. Authorities later confirmed that the case was still under investigation, while they waited for the results of a blood test taken while she was in custody. By the next morning, Britney had been released, but the situation was far from over. A court appearance was scheduled, and speculation began building across social media. Fans were immediately divided. Some worried that the singer might be struggling behind the scenes. Others pushed back hard, saying one mistake shouldn't erase everything she had fought for over the years. And then Britney's team released a statement that only added more intrigue. They admitted the incident was unfortunate, and said she planned to take responsibility and follow the legal process moving forward. But while the headlines focused on the arrest itself, something else was happening quietly in the background. Because one of the most important figures from Britney's recent past was about to break his silence. And his reaction would surprise almost everyone. That figure was the lawyer who once helped her win the biggest legal fight of her life. Not long after the news spread, one voice people didn't expect to hear from suddenly stepped forward: Mathew Rosengart. For those who followed the legal battle that changed Britney's life, Rosengart wasn't just another attorney. He was the powerhouse lawyer who helped dismantle the system that had controlled Britney Spears for more than a decade. So when he finally spoke about the situation, people listened closely. In a public statement, Rosengart made it clear that he still cared deeply about Britney and the work they accomplished together. He described representing her as one of the greatest honors of his career, pointing to the legal fight that restored her freedom, civil rights, and independence after years under strict control. But what really caught attention was how he addressed the recent arrest. Instead of criticizing her or distancing himself, Rosengart chose a more balanced tone. He admitted he didn't know the full details of what happened that night, but he emphasized something important. With freedom comes responsibility. At the same time, he made sure to remind everyone of one thing that hasn't changed. According to him, Britney Spears is and always will be an icon. For many fans, that statement carried weight. This wasn't coming from a random supporter online. It was coming from the man who stood beside her during one of the most intense legal battles in modern pop culture. And that battle was far bigger than most people realized. Because to understand why Rosengart's words matter so much today, you have to go back to the legal system that controlled nearly every part of Britney's life for 13 years. Long before the recent headlines, Britney Spears had already lived through one of the most controversial legal situations in modern celebrity history. Back in 2008, after a series of very public personal struggles during her split from Kevin Federline, a court approved a conservatorship that placed nearly every aspect of Britney's life under legal control. The person in charge of that control was her father, Jamie Spears. Under this arrangement, Britney reportedly had very little say in many of her own decisions. Her finances, career choices, business deals, and even certain personal matters were overseen by the conservatorship. While supporters of the arrangement argued it was meant to protect her during a difficult time, critics questioned how someone could perform on global tours and release albums while still being considered unable to manage her own life. For more than a decade, the system stayed in place. Britney continued performing, headlining major shows, and generating massive revenue. Yet the legal structure controlling her remained unchanged. Then years later, Britney finally began speaking out about what she said was really happening behind the scenes. In court statements that shocked fans around the world, she described the conservatorship as deeply restrictive and claimed it had been used in ways that made her feel trapped. Those revelations changed everything. Suddenly, what had once seemed like a private legal matter became a global conversation about power, control, and celebrity rights. And as more people started paying attention, something powerful began forming online, a movement that would soon shake the entire case. As more details about the conservatorship started surfacing, fans around the world began asking questions that had never been asked before. Why was Britney Spears still under such strict control after so many years? And how could someone capable of releasing music, performing on stage, and building massive business deals still be considered unable to make decisions for herself? Those questions quickly turned into something much bigger. Online, supporters launched what became known as the Free Britney movement. At first, it started as a small group of fans digging through court documents and old interviews, trying to understand how the conservatorship worked. But as their theories and findings spread across social media, the movement exploded. Soon, thousands of supporters were organizing protests outside courthouses and sharing posts demanding transparency in Britney's case. What had once been dismissed as fan speculation suddenly became impossible for the media to ignore. Then came the moment that changed everything. In a dramatic court hearing, Britney finally spoke openly about her situation. For the first time, the public heard directly from her about how the conservatorship had affected her life. Her words shocked many people, describing a level of control that went far beyond what most had imagined. The world was now watching closely. Pressure on the legal system grew rapidly, and the case that had quietly existed for more than a decade was suddenly under an international spotlight. But even with all that attention, one thing was still missing. Britney needed someone inside the courtroom who was willing to fight aggressively on her behalf. And that's when a new lawyer entered the picture. A decision that would change the entire outcome of the case. Everything shifted the moment Britney Spears made a decision that surprised the legal world. She hired powerhouse attorney Mathew Rosengart. Before that moment, Britney had been represented by court-appointed lawyer Samuel D. Ingham III. But after he stepped down from the case, Britney pushed for the right to choose her own legal representation. When Rosengart entered the courtroom, the tone of the entire battle changed almost overnight. Unlike the slower legal approach that had defined the case for years, Rosengart moved quickly and aggressively. Within weeks, he began challenging the structure of the conservatorship and questioning the role of Jamie Spears, the man who had controlled his daughter's finances and major decisions for over a decade. Then came a major breakthrough. Just 2 months after Rosengart took over the case, a judge suspended Jamie Spears from his role as conservator. For many fans who had followed the situation for years, it felt like the first real sign that the system holding Britney back was finally beginning to crack. But the biggest moment was still ahead. Not long after that decision, a Los Angeles judge made the ruling that would shock the entertainment world. The conservatorship that had controlled Britney's life for 13 years was officially terminated. For the first time since 2008, Britney Spears was legally free to make her own decisions again. Fans celebrated around the world, believing a brand new chapter had finally begun for the pop star. But while that moment felt like the end of a long fight, it was really just the beginning of an entirely new phase of her life. Once the conservatorship finally ended, many fans believed Britney Spears was stepping into the happiest chapter of her life. After more than a decade of restrictions, she could finally make her own decisions again. Personally, financially, and professionally. At first, things seemed to move in that direction. With the legal pressure easing, new opportunities quickly appeared. During his time representing her, Mathew Rosengart helped secure several major deals that allowed Britney to start telling her story on her own terms. One of the biggest moments came with the release of her highly anticipated memoir, The Woman in Me. The book became an instant bestseller, drawing massive attention as Britney opened up about parts of her life that had never been fully explained before. Fans rushed to read her version of events, eager to understand what she had experienced during those years under strict control. Behind the scenes, however, some legal tension still lingered. The disputes between Britney and her father, Jamie Spears, didn't completely disappear overnight. Court battles over finances and legal responsibility continued for a while, keeping the story in the public even after the conservatorship ended. Eventually, in 2024, the remaining legal conflict between them was settled, bringing one of the final chapters of that long fight to a close. Around the same time, Rosengart stepped down from his role as Britney's attorney, marking the end of the partnership that had helped secure her independence. From the outside, it looked like Britney finally had the chance to rebuild her life without legal battles hanging over her. But as the recent headlines show, life after such a long and intense chapter isn't always simple. And the latest incident has now sparked a new wave of concern from people close to her. After the arrest made headlines, attention quickly shifted to the people closest to Britney Spears. Fans weren't just asking what happened that night. They were wondering how her family and inner circle were responding behind the scenes. Not long after the news broke, Britney's representatives released a statement addressing the situation. They described the incident as unfortunate and made it clear that Britney plans to cooperate fully with authorities and take responsibility moving forward. But that wasn't the only part of the statement that caught attention. According to her team, the situation may also become a turning point. They hinted that this moment could lead to changes in Britney's life, aimed at improving her overall well-being. The message suggested that the people around her are now working on a plan to help set her up for a healthier and more stable future. There were also encouraging signs involving her family. Reports indicated that her 2 sons, whom she shares with Kevin Federline, may be spending more time with her, something many fans have hoped to see happen for years. At the same time, new rumors began circulating online. Some insiders claimed that Britney's loved ones were exploring treatment options related to addiction and mental health support. These reports haven't been officially confirmed, but they quickly sparked debate across social media. What's interesting, though, is what those same insiders strongly denied. Despite speculation online, multiple sources pushed back against claims that anyone was trying to place Britney back under a conservatorship. For many supporters, that distinction mattered a lot, because after everything she went through to regain control of her life, the idea of returning to that system is something many fans say should never happen again. Still, the conversation around Britney is clearly far from over. The arrest reignited a debate that has been simmering in Britney's fanbase for years. Some people were quick to judge, seeing the DUI as a careless mistake that could have serious consequences. They worried that the pop star might be struggling with lingering challenges, and they questioned whether she had the support she truly needed. On the other side, many of her longtime supporters jumped to defend her. The Free Britney movement, which had spent years advocating for her independence, weighed in almost immediately. They pointed out that someone who lived under 13 years of extreme control, where nearly every decision was monitored, could understandably struggle with trust and personal boundaries afterward. According to these fans, one isolated incident doesn't erase all the courage and growth Britney has shown since regaining her freedom. The movement also reminded the public that trauma from long-term control can have lasting effects. It's common, they argued, for survivors of prolonged coercion to need support while navigating life on their own. That doesn't mean she should be placed back under the very structures that harmed her. This division among fans reflects a broader, more complex conversation about celebrity, accountability, and mental health. While some see the incident as a cautionary tale, others view it as a reminder of how difficult recovery and independence can be after years of surveillance and restriction. And as the debate continues, one thing is clear. Britney's story isn't just about fame or scandal. It's about resilience, autonomy, and the complicated journey of reclaiming control over one's own life. A journey that is still unfolding before the public eye.